What's going on YouTube? Welcome to Wes's Angling. We're at Mere Lane Fishery today, fishing the Specimen Lake behind me. Me and my dad got here this morning just before first light, and we had a cast around with a deeper to see which was the best swim. Now we settled on this one, which is at the far end of the lake, and we're going to do a little bit of a dad versus lad challenge today. We came to have a look at this lake last week and we fished the old course lake behind me. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put it up in the top right hand corner now. But we like the look of it and we decided on fishing a day ticket here today. You can night fish here, but we've decided on just doing a day ticket. It's a nice dry overcast day. But before we get going with that, I'll show you the footage of us having a cast around with a deeper, just in case you're interested in seeing, you know, how we chose a location on the lake. So we started off by coming around the far side of the lake, where when we were here last week we heard that a couple of guys had been catching. But it's literally just coming first light now. I've got you on the big camera, you wouldn't be able to see me if you had you on the GoPro. But with my dad, we're going to have a bit of a specimen fishing lad versus dad challenge today. Scoring. So we're going to do a 3-point system. We're going to have a point for the first fish, a point for the biggest fish and a point for most fish. So we're just casting this deeper out. If my dad doesn't cast it into the island first. It's showing, yeah, it's 2 meters deep there, but it's not picking up on any fish yet. Oh, fish there. Loads of fish there. Mid-lake. So on the deeper, just picked up that you probably won't be able to see this, but there's loads of fish holding up in this in a spot there, just to the probably about 15 meters straight out from that island. So that's a good holding spot. I would maybe stand here and cast it across as far as you can. Bit risky this. I think it's only £5 braid. No. It's £30. Cast that, Dad. So that's what we're seeing on the deeper. So as you can see, it's 2 meters deep there. He's cast straight across that island. Shallow bay there. Goes to a metre there, Dad. Yeah. There's definitely a holding spot there on that side, isn't there? So we've had a bit of a cast about, and there seems to be one peg which is on the left hand side as you come in that's holding all the fish. Obviously there's two of us fishing today and we want to make it as fair as possible, so we want a couple of pegs next to each other ideally that we've got some fish in. Now we're using the deeper for a tool, not just obviously because of finding the fish. That's not the main reason we're doing it. The main reason we're doing it is finding features, seeing how hard the bottom is, seeing how deep it is more than anything. Do you want to have a couple of casts here, Dad? On this side. So we're on the opposite side now, as you can see. Sun's just coming up. Got a lovely red sunrise over there. So, fishing here. Apparently, they've got a £33 sturgeon. There's a couple of cats in here. Smaller catfish, I think up to about £15. Carp apparently go to £29 in here as well. They've got a good bream, so I think the bream go to £7 or £8, and some decent tench as well.
No, bream over 10.
Bream over £10, so some cracking bream in here. That's, to be honest with you, that's my aim for today, to catch a couple of those. So I'll be fishing smaller hook baits, wafters and potentially pop-up corn, fake artificial pop-up corn, but I'll go through the rigs with you. Look at that, what a beautiful morning. Sun's coming up, it's meant to be dry today, but overcast, so that'll be perfect conditions. It's not overcast at the minute, it looks like clear skies. A couple of fish there, Dad, on that drop off. So drop off starts here, probably, I don't know, 5 meters out, 6 meters out. So we've pretty much just got an idea of the full lake. Do you want to cast across this way, Dad, potentially, just while we're here? There's a branch there, be careful. You don't want to get snagged up on that, do you? So what do we think, folks? Who's going to win the Dad versus Lad challenge? So my dad's fishing with worms and wafters, and I'm fishing with corn and a wafter and probably a little krill pop-up topping it off. Just for a bit of colour. Oh yeah, I need to look. I'm documenting the experience, Dad. It's not connected. I'm going to leave the choice of swim down to my dad, so I can blame him if we don't catch now. Well, literally just after anything today, we're going to be fishing carp methods, so size 8 hooks, trying a couple of different rigs, but aimed at some specimen fish, so specimen bream, tench, anything. After all that faffing about, we've decided on fishing the pegs what we packed up this morning. Okay, so they want nets dipping here, so they've got net dips all over the place. That's the lake that we fished last week, the Old Course Lake. I'll give that a good dip. They want specimen nets here, and they also want proper carp cradles, which we've got, obviously. God, it stinks, that net dipping solution. So first rig I'm tying up is the wafter rig. Now what I've done is I've just cut the top off one of these sticky krill wafters, and I've just added a touch more attraction by topping it off with a little pink krill pop-up. I've just trimmed that down as well so that it makes a barrel shape again. Let's thread our baiting floss through the eye of this. You might not be able to see a lot of this on the GoPro. And then we're gently going to tease this wafter and pop up onto that bait floss and into the swivel a little bit. And I'll pull the other sides through of that floss. So there we go. Now what we're going to do is just tie a granny knot and then we'll blob it. So I'm going to pull that down tight and then just granny knot it a few times, and then the tag ends I'm just going to trim and blob. So let's trim them off, and then we're going to blob them just to hold them two pieces together tight. And that is perfect, that's what I wanted. And then I'm going to put that hook bead down a touch. I'm just going to try that in the margin now. So I've got my wellies on, so I'm just going to try this in the margin, make sure it sinks. So I just need to trim that pop-up down a little bit more. Because it's still floating a little bit. And we just want it critically balanced on the bottom. And a bream or a tench should easily take this. There we go. So that's just popped up off bottom there. That'll be perfect. Well, I better stop gabbing and filming because my dad's already got a rig out. I'll just put my bite alarms on, still setting up. So that rig's ready to go out. And there it is. So, got a crank hook on a swivel rig. So I'm just fishing running rigs. As you can see, I've got about a foot of rig tubing. I'm fishing 12-pound main line 6,000 reel and a 2¼ test curve rod. Should be plenty heavy enough for this specimen fishing. So we'll put our first rig on and we'll get this out, because like I say, my dad's already fishing. He's had a bit of a tweak on his worm rig, which is just worms popped up with a little bit of foam. This rig that I'm using today is very safe for the fish. Also pretty foolproof, and that's what I need. I'm not a massive specimen fisher or carp angler, just happy to catch anything. But there you go, anything will take that. Carp, bream, tench, whatever, you name it, that's perfect. Got some PVA bags pre-tied up, so we'll get one of them out, get some attractant on it and get it lobbed out. Just got some 4mm pellets, and I intend when I cast it out I'm going to leave it a really good amount of time. I might only cast out a few times in the day, but just hook that through a few times, check my point. Really sharp, these Kamakura hooks that I'm using. That should sit perfectly. Just going to put a little bit of this krill glug on as well. I want to be just past halfway. That'll do. Sink my line. Because I'm using running rigs, I'll need my bait runner really tight. So let's tighten up that bait runner. Fish will just be able to pull line there. Right, let's get this other rig out. I'm fishing pop-up corn on the other rig. I don't believe it, we're literally fishing on a full empty lake, and somebody's just come and set up right next to my dad's peg. The lake is literally empty, and he's chosen to go right next to us. It's crazy, isn't it? Surely people would want to separate so you have less lines in one area, but there you go. Must think we know what we're doing. So this guy that's just come next to us here, he's literally fishing in my dad's swim, because if you measure it across to the left hand side of this island and the rest of the lake's free, why would you do that? Right, so let's get on to tying this other rig. Slightly different. It's not a fixed rig, this. All this is a curved shank hook with some rig tubing that's heat shrunk into an aggressive curve, and that's just going to sit on the bottom there. It's 15-pound coated braid, and that's just going to sit on the bottom. That rig putty is going to pin it down, and that's going to sit like that in a nice aggressive stance. I've just tied a slip D rig, so this can be completely removed, and I could change the hook if I wanted to. And then I've got a tiny little ring swivel there that I'm just going to use with popped up corn. I've got a couple of choices. Can either use a little bit of rig foam, so let's use this decent piece of corn here. I'm going to get covered in this pineapple glug that I've put on them, and then one of these tiny pieces of foam, just out pop it up off the bottom. That'll look nice, that, covered in pineapple. Dyes your hands yellow. And then I'm just going to thread this bait floss through the eye of that tiny little ring swivel, and then we'll thread these two on. And this is just a Fox medium curve size 8, so I'm not fishing with massive size 4 hooks or anything like that. All barbless. I only usually fish with barbless, so there we go. Now all I need to do now is just pull that little bit of foam over the swivel. I'm just going to trim it down a touch like that, and then a couple of granny knots again, and then we'll blob the ends same as we did with the wafter, and they just bury in that top bait, but it'll stop them pulling through. And this slip D rig, if I get a take, it'll just pull nicely away from the point of the hook and stop the fish throwing the hook, hopefully. You know what bream are like. If I get a big bream on, they'll be shaking and everything. And they'll end up throwing the hook. So there we go. That's that blobbed. That ain't coming off. And that's going to just sit up nicely there. I'm going to put a little bit more pineapple stuff on in a second. After I've checked the buoyancy. Oh yeah, that's perfect, that. If you're going to be able to see this on the GoPro, that'll just sit in the water like that. It's really clear water, so it's going to be really visible. Big bag of PVA on it, full of particles. Just put a little bit of this in, this pineapple on the PVA, and we'll get this out. So this is going to be a fair old cast, and I want it in between them islands over there to the left though. Shouldn't be a problem for this rod. It's meant for fishing on rivers, so let's get a little bit more line in. Everything looks good, rig tubing looks good, rig looks good. Okay, open up my bail arm. Okay folks, so me and my dad have both got both rods out now and we're fully set up and the challenge is underway. My dad's had a couple of indications on his worm rigs. Now that might be a little fish nibbling at the worms, it can happen sometimes. I've had a bleep on the corn rig that I've got out on the right hand side over towards the far side of the island there. I think it'll be tough fishing, especially with the temperature dropping over the last couple of weeks. We're not expecting to catch loads of fish today. If one of us catches, I think we'll have done well. But you've got to be in it to win it, and we'll try and get a couple of fish for you. And we'll see who wins the challenge. I think the problem with this place, and I don't know whether you'll agree with me, but there's just too many pegs on it for a specimen lake. So obviously they've made them into bivvy sized pegs, so it was probably a coarse fishery to begin with, a normal coarse fishery, and then look, there's pegs every 10 metres, but if you've got somebody there casting out to the island as well as you, then it's going to cause problems, isn't it? But and if everybody's doing it, if the lake was full, can you imagine? It's just too many pegs. Should be every other peg really, I think, on this lake. You know, and if it's a specimen lake, people are fishing 2 rods. There's not a lot of choice if it's full. So I think that could be a potential issue. I've seen a couple of carp splash in the margin, so it might be worth trying the margin here. I haven't got a rod in the margin at the moment, but I've baited up just down here across from this these bushes and reeds. So it might be worth trying down there in an hour or so, or when it warms up. My dad's just told me that you can fish 3 rods here. 3 rods, but you can only... Your swim's only probably 5 metres across. But it's £12 for a day ticket here. Do you remember how much it was for 24 hours? 25 quid for 24 hours, which is pretty standard, I think. So it's got toilet facilities on site as well. So it's coming up to 12:30 now. Me and my dad still haven't caught. We've not had anything at all. I've made a couple of changes. You know, I've tried swapping over to a pineapple wafter rather than the corn. And I've also moved one of my rods down the margin. And I've still not had anything. Well, there's plenty of carp crashing on the opposite bank. Now, might be a mistake, but we want to get a fish for you and we'll do what we can to get that. So we've decided that we're going to make a move, a bit of a tactical move, and we're going to go and fish the margins down the bottom bank. The wind's blowing down that way, and that's always a good sign. Obviously it's always a bit of a risk moving, but we've had absolutely nothing all day and we've been here since 6:30, so with it warming up now, it might be that the carp are in the margins down the bottom end. Apparently there's gravel bars in the corners, so it could be that's where they are. Who knows? But I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to make the move, take a risk, and we'll see if we get anything. Okay guys, so we're just in a little bit of a tactical move and we're now at the opposite end. So I've just put a PVA bag on this and I'm going to get it tight up to this margin if I can, on the left here. There's a reed bed So I'll have to lean out a bit, but I'm sure I'll get it there. Need to be tight up to them reeds if I can. That'll do. That's definitely tight enough. Sink my line. But my dad's just saying that we need to be stealthy and not make much noise or anything like that. I don't think that matters when there's a guy shoveling stuff into the road. Yeah, it's a good job we were stealthy, Dad. Good job. I've just had the best indication of a fish that I've had all day. Bit of a tug on this right hand rod here, so fingers crossed we're onto one. It was really deep there actually when I cast out, so that might have something to do with it, but fingers crossed, might be getting somewhere. My dad's just had a little bit of a twitch on his left hand rod here. That's close in down this margin, across from these bushes. A few different signs of activity, getting exciting. I just need to get one before he does though. That's the problem. There's still a challenge going on here. The first challenge is catching a fish, the second challenge is winning the challenge. There's Batchu berry going on this one. Just squeezing the hook stop into the top just to disguise it a little bit. And that's a Batchu berry rig ready to go. Tied a little PVA bag up. What's this, Dad? It looks like a Christmas cracker. Why have you got so much excess on it? Trim it down, will you? Christmas cracker. Yeah, Christmas cracker. Well, I just did a perfect cast underneath them trees on the far bank. How long's that been in, Dad? 10 minutes and it's just gone
10-15 minutes, yeah.
Doesn't feel massive. But it's a fish. Fingers crossed we land it. It's a carp. I think this net's a little bit big for this fish, but there we go. Oh, I don't know, it's a nice one. Hey, we've saved the blank, Dad. Let's have a look at it in the net. Oh, I don't know. It's thick back carp, isn't it? Look at that, lovely.
That's a belly fish, that one.
Yeah, it is.
That is.
It didn't feel that big on, and that was on the 12mm krill wafter. That's a nice comment, isn't it? See, hooks come out in the net. That's on a Kamakura hook. It's bent the hook point out, but it's done its job. So we can change that. Let's get it out from this net. Look at this fish, look at how fat it is. It's beautiful. Keep him wet. Pristine condition. Big paddle tail. Very, very thick bodied. Save the blank! Look at this, guys. Well, we were patient and we've got it. Oh, what a lovely carp. And I do believe that's me winning the challenge in it, Dad. Yes, we've done it. Lucky Wes's angling hoodie. But that was on sticky krill wafters, the barrel ones. I think it was more the place that I managed to cast it rather than the hook bait, to be honest with you, because it was right under the overhanging trees and it probably felt safe feeding there. They're probably very wary of these carp. But it's bent the hook point out, so we'll have to put another hook on it, but it doesn't matter, it's done its job. I've just had a couple of bleeps on this left hand rod now, which is over by the reeds, so I've managed to cast it. It's probably about a foot off them far reeds. I know it's not been that action packed today, but I hope you agree that that was a lovely carp I had before. Can't argue with that as a specimen fish. It was in absolutely pristine condition and it's bigger than stuff I'd normally catch on the method feeder, so it was well worth coming today. Obviously we've had 4 rods out all day and we've only had 1 fish, but that's the way specimen fishing goes sometimes, especially at this time of year. It's not going to be massively full on at the moment, but I'd class it as a good day. Whether I choose to come and fish here again, that's another thing. I think there's plenty of specimen waters around this area that I'd rather fish. But it was nice to try it and we managed to catch something. Lucky Wes's angling hoodie's done it though. Your Wes's angling hoodie's not arrived yet, has it, Dad? Clearly.
I think you've burned it.
Well folks, it's coming up to 6 o'clock now and we're going to call it a day there. Just that 1 fish today, so I've won the Dad versus Lad challenge for today. How do you feel about that, Dad? You're going to win the next one?
Well, that makes it 1-1, that.
Oh no, they've not seen that one. They've not seen that video, so they don't know about it. I don't post the ones that you win. So that brings us to an end today, and we'll see you in the next Wes's Angling.